Donald Trump, of course, in more and more hot water, which probably only helps him, about the comments that someone made in New Hampshire when he was taking questions. The guy said, you know, there's a problem in the country, the Muslims, and we got to get rid of them. Again, sounds like a Borat skit. My country has the problem. Except just take out, it is the Jew, and put in, it is the Muslim, and Donald Trump will sing along with you. So now, since he took a lot of heat for that, people have been asking him about it. First, here's part of his answer.
A no-win situation. Do we agree? If I would have stopped him, I would have said, and you remember the famous thing where John McCain just ripped that microphone out of the woman's hands, and I don't know, I thought it was a little bit harsh, to be honest with you. Does anybody agree with me? That was harsh, wasn't it? They gave him so much credit. You know, not me. I didn't give him a lot of credit.
Shocking. He prefers people who don't rip mics away from the audience when they say horrible, hateful, bigoted things. Now, remember, the guy said that we got a problem in this country, it's the Muslims, and they have training camps, and it's a total right-wing conspiracy theory. They don't have any training camps. In fact, some guy almost went and killed some people in upstate New York because he thought it was a terrorist training camp. It was just like a normal camp like everybody, but it was for Muslims. So it was for kids, right? Thank God they caught him before he did that. But this is the kind of dangerous environment that we're in. And the guy says, we got to get rid of all of them. We got to get rid of them. An entire religion in America, they're just as American as anybody else, but we got to get rid of them. Donald Trump doesn't find that disturbing. He finds it disturbing if you rip the mic away from that person. Now, did McCain really just rip the mic away from that lady? Well, we have the tape. Let's find out how dangerous that situation was.
He's an Arab. He is not.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Ripped it away from her. That's the real danger. Okay. So now Trump's going to continue here. Do we have a Muslim problem? Oh, boy. Buckle up.
This country, it's called Muslims. Now, you are not responsible for what he says, but this is raw, unvarnished, ignorant bigotry. You are a leader. You're the front runner in the Republican race. Do you not have a responsibility to call out this hatred?
Well, you know, we could be politically correct if you want, but certainly, are you trying to say we don't have a problem? Because I think everybody would agree. I have friends that are Muslims. They're great people, amazing people, and most Muslims, like most everything, I mean, these are fabulous people, but we certainly do have a problem. I mean, you have a problem throughout the world.
What's the problem?
Well, you have radicals that are doing things. I mean, it wasn't people from Sweden that blew up the World Trade Center, Jake.
What if he had said, we have a problem in this world, it's called blacks? Would you have said something then?
No, I would have probably I listened to his question. I mean, who am I? I listened to his question. He made a question / probably statement, but I listened to his question, and I actually didn't respond.
Who am I? You're running for president. You're the leader among the Republican Party now. God help us all. What do you mean, who am I? It's your town hall event. He's asking you a question. It's easy for you to say, no, I don't agree with that. The problem in the country isn't just Muslims in general. And it's a classic Trump thing to say, there's some wonderful Muslims. There are a couple of good ones. There's some good ones. By the way, it's the same exact thing he said about Mexicans. There's some good ones. I mean, mainly rapists and criminals that are coming across the border, but some good ones, some wonderful ones, right? And there's the same thing, old Southern racists, you say. I mean, there's some good blacks, and the rest of them are, you remember how they finished that sentence, right? And also in the past, I mean, there's some good ones, but, you know, the rest of them are Jews. We've heard that before. And he doesn't see why that would ever be a problem. No, he wouldn't stop anybody from saying any of those things. Because it leads up to ugly things and ugly assumptions and ugly stereotypes, ugly discrimination, and then it gets worse from there. Now, finally, we go to Donald Trump and the president. Now, if the problem is Muslims running for office, Muslims in the country, Ben Carson thinks that Muslims shouldn't run for president, I don't get it. Didn't you guys say that Obama was Muslim? 54% of Trump supporters believe that Obama is Muslim. 43% of all Republicans believe that Obama is Muslim. Didn't he already get elected? Well, let's ask Trump about it.
Can you imagine supporting or being comfortable if a Muslim ever became president of the United States?
I can say that, it's something that at some point could happen. We'll see. I mean, it's something that could happen. Would I be comfortable? I don't know if we have to address it right now, but I think it is certainly something that could happen.
You said you'd had no problem putting a Muslim in your cabinet.
Some people have said it already happened, frankly, but of course you wouldn't agree with that.
Actually, let's get to that. Why won't you concede that the president is a Christian and that the president was born in the United States?
Because I don't talk about people's faith. Now, in all fairness, he said he was a Christian, and he said he is a Christian. He attended the Church of Reverend Wright, and so, I'm willing to take him at his word for that. I have no problem with that.
He's unbelievable, man. Every time he goes over the top. Some people, they say we already had a Muslim elected. What? Did I say something? I didn't say anything. I mean, I guess I'll take him at his word that he's a Christian. I mean, he went to church a couple of times. Well, I don't talk about people's faith. No, dude, you're the one who brought it up. What do you mean you don't talk about people's faith? So, and then after he throws all those punches, goes, what, me? I'm Muslim. I never said anything about Muslims. Obama, I never said anything about Obama. These guys are unreal, man. They just keep going and going and going. So if you think that Trump's going to apologize for something, you don't know the man at all, okay? So for his supporters, they love this. They're like, yes, the Muslim is the problem. My country has a problem. It is the Muslim. By the way, speaking of people who sing along, Ted Nugent also tweeted, Obama's a Christian, and I'm a gay vegetarian pirate. Well, President Obama is a Christian. Even Donald Trump kind of conceded that at this moment. It's an indisputable fact. So I didn't say you're a gay vegetarian pirate. You said it. What kind of pirate? I don't even want to know.